They can sign players, but they can't register players at present, and that's the more important issue. What Barcelona have to be able to do is to reduce the level of their short-term debt under the La Liga rules. Now, the way that they're going to do that is to generate short-term income. First of all, in respect of their broadcasting rights. So they've been involved in a deal with Sixth Street from the US, and I think they've sold 15% of their broadcasting rights, covering around about the next 20 years. So therefore, it's the equivalent of a payday loan, in which you take money now, which comes out of your future revenues. And that's being referred to by Laporte as one of the two economic levers that they have. The other way that they're going to do that is in respect of some of their commercial revenues. And I think they're willing to give up to 49% of those, again, in a deal which could be worth a couple of €100 million. You put those two together, and that will allow them to spend some money. Now, under the La Liga rules, if you initially are in breach of the limits, you're only allowed to spend €1 for every €3 that you generate as revenue. But even so, it looks as if they could be in receipt of somewhere in the region of €400 million from these two deals, which will allow them to spend 130 million. I think now that the first deal has gone through with Sixth Street, they should be able to recruit one player. They were relying on De Jong going in order to be able to register the others. If that's not going to work, then expect them to pull the other levers perhaps quicker in order to generate the revenue, which will allow them to register the remaining players. That is a factor. I don't think it's the only factor. Clearly, if he was integral to the coach's plans for this season, I think there would be more resistance. But it would appear that he is perceived as being a peripheral player or a squad player. And if you're looking at squad players, then those tend to be the ones that are the most valuable, which get sold first. The player is very much in the right. The player signed a contract with an agreed amount of remuneration. The club asked the player to make a sacrifice during COVID. If the club can afford to recruit Lewandowski and recruit Rafinha and Torres, then those players will not be taking pay deferrals. So why should De Jong be the fall guy in respect of this? So you can understand the player being angry about this situation. Effectively, he's being treated as a disposable asset and asked to take a financial sacrifice at the same time. Barcelona have been run very poorly from a financial point of view for a long period. They have relied on Messi to be their focus of attention until things started to deteriorate on the back of COVID. But COVID was not the only reason why Barcelona are in this problem and other clubs aren't. So Barcelona are trying to emotionally blackmail some of the players by focusing on the Barcelona brand, its appeal to a fan base. And I think there will be resistance from players because if they've acted in good faith. Now, whether they're worth the money they're being paid, that's not for me to decide. If another university comes and offers me 10 times as much money as I'm earning at present, I take it. Whether I'm worth it or not, well, they made the initial offer. Nobody forced Barcelona to offer these players the wages that they are currently being paid. So it's up to Barcelona to honour the contract, and they don't appear to be willing to be honourable in respect of those contracts at present. I think Chelsea are an interesting place because if you take a look at the Financial Times today, they've just published a report which says that Chelsea have already borrowed 800 million. Now, this is a huge sum of money. We've seen clubs such as Spurs borrow a lot of money from the markets, but Spurs have a huge new stadium to show for it, and they get the benefit of higher revenues. What Chelsea are going to do in respect of their borrowings is unclear. What we've seen with Spurs is that for every €1 worth of interest they are paying on their loans, they are generating between €3 and €4 of revenue. So that economically looks good. Chelsea don't appear to be going down the same route. Manchester United will be relatively subject to the problems of not being in the Champions League this season, so their spending will be modest. Liverpool have done their spending. I think Manchester City have done almost all their spending with the exception of Cucurella. But again, they've got Premier League champions. They've got Champions League to fund those costs. And they've also sold Sterling. They've sold Torres last January. So Manchester City have got a lot more money than people realise. I think Newcastle don't want to fall into the same trap that we saw with Everton when they had new owners come in. Everton spent around about €700 million in 4 years as far as the transfer market was concerned, and they didn't buy well. So I think what Newcastle want to do is to build a squad not in 1 or 2 windows, but over the course of 5 or 6, and they're willing to be patient to do that. And that's why we've seen their spending be quite modest. They've always got financial fair play to be concerned about. And the danger is if you sign 2 or 3 players for 50 or 60 million euros and they don't turn out to be very good, those players are on huge wages for 4 or 5 years. And that means that you can't spend in the summer of 23 and the summer of 24. The sensible thing to do is to improve the club gradually. That gets you into Europa Conference, Europa League, ideally into the Champions League in, let's say, 4 or 5 years, and then you're not being dragged back by financial fair play due to your earlier poor signings. Well, that does seem very strange. I think West Ham have a pay structure, and what they don't want to do is to have Lingard come in on more pay than the existing squad, causing bad feeling. It's slightly different with a club which has been newly promoted. All of the players will just have received significant pay rises. They will also might be able to sell part of Lingard's pay package as a signing on fee rather than as a weekly cost. And if they stay up this season, then it will be seen as money well spent. Forest's big issue is to avoid being relegated. I suspect that Lingard's pay packet is very heavily incentivized to where they finish at the end of the season.